Lesson 42 in Established in the Faith book is entitled Questions to Ask Muslims About Major Errors in the Quran. We asked the question, is the Quran from the true God or is it man-made with many errors? Let us check these science and history errors in the Quran. Let's look at the first verse in the Quran that we will discuss. Question 1. Mr. Muslim, you know how the sun sets in the west every afternoon? Do you believe that the sun sets in a spring of water? Is this true or false? Well, today we know that this is totally false. The sun does not set in a spring of water. But in Muhammad's time, nobody knew where the sun went every afternoon. Muhammad said that he was a prophet of Allah, so people asked him the question, if you are a prophet of Allah, tell us where the sun goes every afternoon, because we do not know. At this point, Muhammad had two choices. Choice 1, he could tell the truth and say, I do not know where the sun goes every afternoon. But people would reply that this proves Muhammad to be a false prophet and that he should go to hell. Muhammad did not want people to say or think this. Muhammad's second choice was to make up a lie or guess, because nobody in Muhammad's time knew any better. Please read Quran 18:83 to 91, and it tells how Zulkarnain came to the setting place of the sun and found it setting in a spring of water. Let's have a look at this passage in the Quran. Here it is. And they ask you about Zulkarnain. Say, this is Allah talking, I shall recite to you something of his story. Verily, that means truly, meaning it's meant to be literal. We, Allah, established him in the earth, and we, Allah, gave him means of everything. So he followed away until when he reached the setting place of the sun. Notice setting place of the sun. There is no place where the sun sets. There's a direction west, but no place. He found it, the sun, setting in a spring of black, muddy, hot water. The sun does not set in a spring of black, muddy, hot water. And he found near it a people. We, Allah, said by inspiration, O Zulkarnain, either you punish them or treat them with kindness. Then he followed another way until when he came to the rising place of the sun, he found it rising on a people for whom we, Allah, had provided no shelter against the sun. And so it was. So here we see the Quran says that there is a rising place of the sun and there is a setting place of the sun, and the sun sets in a spring of black, muddy, hot water, so the Quran says. This is a very big mistake in the Quran, and we ask, where is the setting place of the sun? Does it set in Tehran or Mecca or in your bedroom? There is no place where the sun sets. It sets in a direction west, but not a place. This is a very big mistake in the Quran. Question 3, do you think the sun sets in a spring of water? Is this true or false? It is totally 100% false. The sun does not set in a spring of water. Which nation is this spring of water located? Muhammad guessed, but he guessed wrong. This is a very big mistake in the Quran, and it proves 4 things. It proves the Quran is a false, fake, lying book. It proves that Muhammad is a false, fake, lying prophet. It proves Allah is a false, fake, lying God and not the true God, who would never say such a stupid thing. And it proves Islam is a false, fake, lying religion, which you can throw in the rubbish tin and have a much happier, better life. Now, there's a 4th question. Muslims may object that this is figurative or metaphorical and not literal. We ask Muslims, show me one figurative word in this passage. There are none. Zulkarnain travelled on a literal road to a literal setting place of the sun to find a literal sun setting in a literal spring of water with a literal people nearby. There is not one figurative word in this passage. It is 100% literal, as seen by the phrase, so it was in verse 91 and verily in verse 84. We see that Pickthall, Yusuf Ali, Shakir, Arbery, Hilali Khan, Bukhari, 4802, 4803 and 54.421, and Abu Dawood, 3991 and 4002, all say the sun sets in a spring of water. In Abu Dawood, Muhammad said, do you know where the sun sets? He said, no. And Muhammad said, it sets in a spring of warm water. So Abu Dawood says the same thing of reporting Muhammad's same belief. Question 5. Muslims may object that this is a wrong translation. We ask Muslims, who knows Arabic better, you or the best translators in Arabia? How many years have you studied Arabic at university? I have 3 English translations of the Quran, Dawood, Pickthall and Yusuf Ali, and they all translate this the same way. If you don't like this translation, go tell all your Muslim bookshops to stop selling this translation. They all say it is okay. All my Arabic friends say this is the right translation. Okay, let's go to the second verse in the Quran that is a mistake. Please read verse number 2. And we see here in the Quran it says that the heading is a true statement. The sun does not have a fixed resting place. Yasin 36:38. The sun hastens to its resting place. So we ask, where is the resting place of the sun? Does the sun rest on your pillow? It has no resting place. The sun does not sleep. Muhammad felt sleepy after a tired, difficult day, and he felt that the sun also felt tired. This big mistake proves 4 things. It proves the Quran is a false, fake, lying book. Muhammad's a false, fake, lying prophet. Allah's a false, fake, lying God. Islam, false, fake, lying religion. And you can throw it in the rubbish tin and have a happy life. Let's go to mistake number 3. The heading is a true statement saying a fetus was never a clot of coagulated or dried blood, as believers Quran 23:14 says. Then we made the nutfa into a clot, a piece of thick coagulated blood. Then we made the clot into a little lump of flesh. Then we made out of that little lump of flesh bones, and we clothed the bones with flesh. So the Quran says that a nutfa, or an embryo in the mother's womb, passes through a stage of being a clot of dead blood cells. This is totally, completely wrong and false and lying, and it proves 4 things. It proves, so it's talking about how a baby forms in mother's womb, 23:14 and 96:2, state that a fetus, embryo, will not pass through a stage of being a clot of coagulated blood or dead blood cells. Totally wrong. A baby starts as a fertilized egg which keeps dividing until a baby is born. A baby never passes through a stage of being a clot of dead blood cells. Muhammad never had a microscope to see how a baby forms. He guessed, but he guessed wrong, and it proves the Quran's a false prophet, Muhammad false prophet, Quran false book, Muhammad false prophet, Allah false God, Islam false religion, and throw it out. Let's go to number 4 mistake in the Quran. Can you please read Quran 41 verse 12? Let's look at this verse now. It says, the heading, the true statement is the stars are not closer to the earth than the sun or the moon, 67:5 and 37:6 and 41:12. This is the reference. Then he completed and finished their creation as 7 heavens in 2 days, and he made in each heaven its affair. Well, the Quran never tells us what the 7 heavens are, but the Bible says there's 3 heavens: atmosphere, birds flying in heaven, space where the stars are, and where God is. And we adorn the nearest lowest heaven with lamps or stars, to be an adornment as well as to guard from the devils by using them as missiles against the devils. This is a very big mistake in the Quran. Stars are not in the nearest lowest sky or heaven. They are a long, long way away. The nearest one is 4 light years away. And this is an enormously big mistake in the Quran. And some distant stars are 13 billion light years away. This is a very great distance. Muhammad did not know how far away or how big stars are. He thought they were as big as they appeared to the naked eye, as specks or as bullets to shoot at devils. Muhammad guessed, but he guessed wrong, and this proves that the Quran's a false book. And Muhammad's a false prophet, Allah false God, Islam a false religion. Let's go to mistake number 5. Please read Quran 50 verse number 6, and it says here, the heading, the true statement, the sky is not a solid dome with no cracks in it. And have they not looked at the heaven above them, how we made it and adorned it, and there are no rifts or cracks in it. The word crack only applies to a solid object. This proves that there was a sky which is solid, and he did not know that the sky was gas. Let's go back to point number 5. We only use the word crack with a solid object. Liquids and gases like water and air cannot have a crack. Only a solid may have a crack. So when the Quran uses crack to describe the sky, We know the writer thought that the sky was a solid roof that may have cracks but does not. This idea of the sky being a solid roof was common in Muhammad's time. Today we know that this is completely false. The sky is not a roof, a solid roof, but a gaseous atmosphere. Okay, let's go back up now to the next reference, number 6. It says the sky, the heading true statement is the sky does not have a roof. Prophets 21 verse 32. We made the heaven a roof, safe and well guarded. We ask, how far up is the roof? 100 kilometres, 50 kilometres? What's the roof made of? Wood, paper, glass, cow manure? No, there is no roof. And number 7, the true statement, the heaven cannot fall onto the earth. 22:65, as the Quran says. People asked Muhammad, what's holding up the roof? Muhammad said, He, Allah, withholds the heaven from falling on the earth except by his leave. So this verse says that Allah, that makes 2 mistakes, that there's no roof, but it says there is a roof, and it says that Allah holds up the roof. But there is no such roof, and it's not held up. This is an enormously big mistake in the Quran. Let us go to the next one. And then we can go to number 8. Here we read, people asked Muhammad, where does hail come from? Once again, Muhammad had no idea. So in 24:43, he guessed that hail comes from heavens, mountains, or mountains in the sky. But he guessed wrong. Nobody knew, so he got away with this lie for 1,000 years. Today we know that hail comes from water freezing in the clouds and falling to the ground. Have you ever seen Mount Everest floating past, dropping hail onto the ground? No. Question 2, do you think that hail comes from mountains in the sky? No way. This mistake proves the Quran's a false book, Muhammad's a false prophet, Allah, false God, Islam, false religion. Here's the reference. From heaven's mountains he sends down the hail, pelting it with whom he will and turning it away from whom he pleases. Let's go to number 9. The true statement says the earth is not flat as a bed. 20 verse 53. Quran says, who has made the earth for you like a bed spread out? Now the earth is not flat like a bed, but it is round like a ball. Okay? And it feels flat, but the earth is a sphere. People in Muhammad's time believed in a flat earth. Muhammad guessed, but he guessed wrong, and it proves Muhammad's a false prophet. Quran, false book. Let's go to number 10. Please read number 10. Quran in 27:61 claims the earth is a fixed abode. Let's just scroll down to number 10. Is not he better than your gods who has made the earth as a fixed abode? Well, the earth is not fixed, but the earth is spinning on its axis every 24 hours. Earth is orbiting the sun once every year. Earth is moving through space. It feels fixed, but it's not. This number 10 is a very big mistake in the Quran as well. And so it shows that the Quran is wrong again, and it proves the Quran's a false book. Let's go to number 11. Please read number 11. In Quran 28 verse 38, Pharaoh of Egypt tells Haman of Persia to make a fire to build a tower. Let's scroll down to number 11. Pharaoh, who lived in 1500 BC, and Haman 510 BC, never met each other. They lived 1,000 years apart. That's the true statement. Now, Quran 28:38 says, Pharaoh said, O chiefs, I know not that you have an ilah, a god other than me, so kindle for me a fire, O Haman, to bake bricks out of clay, to set up for me a sar, a lofty tower or palace. So here we have Pharaoh, who lived 1500 BC, talking to Haman, who lived 510 BC. So you say, how many years apart is that? It's about 1,000 years apart. And how far is Cairo of Egypt from Tehran in Persia? Around over 2,000 kilometres. So this conversation never happened. It's a complete and utter lie. And question 4, how did this historical mistake enter the Quran? Well, Muhammad knew many Jews in Arabia who told him how Pharaoh and Haman tried to destroy the Jews. Because the Arabs never had a dating system to date the events of ancient history, or libraries, Muhammad presumed that Pharaoh and Haman lived at the same time. Muhammad guessed, but he guessed wrong. This error proves 4 things. The Quran's a false book, Muhammad false prophet, Allah false god, Islam false religion. And you can throw it in the rubbish bin. This verse confuses Pharaoh 1500 BC and Haman 500 BC and the Tower of Babel 2200 BC. Let's go to number 12. We go to Moses 1500 BC and the Samaritans 700 BC never met each other. They lived 800 years apart. Taha 20 verse 95. Moses said, "And what is the matter with you, O Samiri? Why did you do so?" Well, how many years of Moses 1500 BC to Samaritans 700 BC? About 800 years apart. Very big mistake in the Quran. This proves the Quran is a total false book. The Samaritans were a race formed in 721 BC when the Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, forcing Israelites to marry people of other nations. Their children were called Samaritans, as described in 2 Kings 17, 24-29. They only became a race in 721 BC. Moses never knew them. So, 800 years apart. This conversation between Moses and Samiri never took place. Moses died 800 years before the Samaritans came into existence. Number 13 mistake in the Quran. Surah 13 verse 3 says all fruit come in pairs of male and female. Let's have a look at this in the reference down below. The true heading says all fruit do not come in pairs of male and females. There are no male or female apples or oranges. Thunder 13 verse 3 says, "He it is who spread out the earth and placed therein firm hills and flowing streams, and of all fruits he placed therein 2 spouses, male and female." Rubbish. Have you ever seen Mr. Banana or Mrs. Banana? How do you tell the difference between a Mr. Banana and Mrs. Banana? Well, there's no such thing. It's total nonsense. And so how do you tell the difference between them? Fruit do not have gender. Date trees do, but not their fruit. This is another big mistake in the Quran, proving 4 things. Number 14, please read number 14. 596 says, "It is safe or halal to eat any sea creature." Now, if you look at 14, it says here, the heading, true statement, the heading says, "It is not safe to eat any sea creature," as 596 claims in the Quran, because some are poisonous, like box jellyfish. The Bible distinguishes between edible fish with fins and scales and unclean fish, as in Leviticus 11, 9-12. Here's the Quran reference. "Lawful or halal to you is what you catch from the sea, and the sustenance it provides, a wholesome food for you and for the seafarer." So the Quran says it's lawful or halal to eat whatever you catch from the sea. It's good food to eat for you and seafarers. Total rubbish. If you go to Wikipedia and search poisonous fish, you will see that there's over 1,200 species of poisonous fish in the oceans. And if you eat them, you'll be dead. Like, for example, if you eat box jellyfish, okay? If you touch it, you're dead in 5 minutes. If you eat it, you're dead in 1 minute. This is very, very crazy and deadly. Question, would you and a sheikh like to eat box jellyfish? Maybe invite Ayatollah and Basij for dinner, give them halal box jellyfish, and we can have roast chicken. So, no, you would not want to eat box jellyfish. The Quran says it's okay to eat. This shows the Quran is a deadly book. Muhammad guessed, but he guessed wrong, and it proves 4 things. Let's go to number 15. Please read number Quran 86, verses 5-7. It says that semen comes from between the backbone and the ribs. Totally false. It comes from the testicles, which are about 30 centimeters lower. Muhammad guessed wrong again, and this proves 4 things. Let's just go down here to see it. Number 15, semen does not come from between backbone and ribs, is the true statement. See the Quran 86, 5-7. He is created from a water gushing forth, proceeding from between the backbone and the ribs. Totally false. Number 16, mistake in the Quran. The true statement is the sun does not float in an orbit, earth and the moon do. It's 36:40 and 21:33. It is not for the sun to overtake the moon. Well, the sun does not follow the moon. The That's false. Nor does the night outstrip the day. They all float, each in an orbit. Well, I don't think the sun floats in an orbit. Another big mistake in the Quran. Number 17, the true statement is the moon does not follow the sun but is in a different orbit. 91 verse 1 and 2. By the moon as it follows it, the sun. Well, the moon does not follow the sun. The moon follows the earth. And number 18 mistake, Solomon did not die in the 7 years building his temple, as 1 Kings 6:38 says, but Solomon ruled 40 years, as in 1 Kings 11:42. Quran 34:14 says, when we decreed Solomon's death, they, jinn building the temple, did not know that he was dead until they saw a worm eating away his staff. When his corpse fell down, the jinn realized he was dead. So we asked two questions. Why did nobody notice Solomon had died? And why did he not fall down on dying? When a person dies, everyone falls down on the ground, and everybody knows that that person has died. So does the Quran want us to believe that Solomon stayed standing up, resting on his stick for 10 or 20 years until the worm ate away the stick, and only when he fell down did people know he was dead? No, totally wrong. That's a lie, and he would have fallen down straight away and everybody would have known he was dead. So these prove the Quran is a very false, fake, lying book, and you can throw it in the rubbish tin. And Muhammad's a false prophet, Allah's a false God, Islam a false religion, and you can reject them and throw them out. Okay? God bless.